Hey there, what's going on, everybody? It's Star. Look at these new sprites that I spent so much time working on for this video. Look at them. Look at them closely. Look at them really closely. Get your nose all the way up to the screen. Alright, no, but seriously, I spent a lot of time working on these as well as some of the other assets in this video. And lately, I really have been in the mood to making my videos look a little bit more polished. I also recently just redesigned my persona, so I wanted to make sprites that match that. So I really hope you guys enjoy these sprites and these assets and stuff. This is what I'm really going to be using for my videos from now on. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Today, we have a very special thing, something that is very close to my heart. We're going to be redesigning some of my old characters, but not just any old characters. These characters were one of the first OCs that I had ever done outside of Molly, and it is the first separate universe that I made outside of Molly's universe, especially since Molly's actual universe wasn't developed yet at the time. She was still only an insert OC that I put into the TMNT universe and stuff. So at the time, this was the first original universe that I had created. Now, at the time, this universe was still heavily centered around My Hero Academia. That was another show that I was really into around that time. So it was basically a copy of that universe, besides a couple of small things. So what I wanted to do today was redesign all those characters that I made, as well as do a big rehaul of the original universe and touch on some of the decisions I made back then. So yeah, that's what I have for today. So strap in, grab some snacks, and let's begin. Just to let you guys know as well, I have about 10 or so characters that were in this universe, and I'm only going to be doing 5 of them today. I'm going to be doing the first set of girls in the universe, and then I'm going to be doing the rest, which were guys. So stay tuned for the next part of this video. Now, before we get into the redesigns, I'm going to quickly touch on some of the lore that has to do with this universe, as well as throw some images on the screen that have to do with the original designs of these characters. Now, the world itself is centered around the idea that everybody is born with some type of power, and there's a very, very small percentage of people who aren't born with a power. And we follow the main character, who is Astrid Myers, who doesn't know what her power actually is. And the actual plot of the story is centered more around a murder mystery conspiracy theory type of idea, and I will touch on that a little bit more once I get into the actual redesigns. And there is a choice that people get to go through once they get out of high school, where they can decide to live a normal life, have a normal job, and go to a normal school and have some type of normal career that has to do with like science or history or whatever. Or you can go to a school that's centered around magic and learning how to hone in on your powers, so that you can use your power to go into an occupation that will benefit society, and you can directly use your magic in everyday life. And that is the group of kids that we will be following in this story. So we'll start with the main character, Astrid, and for her I struggled, because the main thing about this character that was always an issue when I was drawing her growing up was that she didn't have much of a personality. She spent a lot of time focused on one thing when she was growing up, so she didn't have time to figure out exactly what she liked or didn't like. And what was that one thing that she was focused on, you may ask? Why, her mother's disappearance, of course. You see, for this character's story, she lost her mother when she was very young, and it wasn't confirmed or denied that she passed away or anything like that. It's just that her mother up and left one day and hasn't been back. And her mother's disappearance completely rocked the family's whole dynamic and just completely broke apart the family. It turned the father and the sister into 2 completely different people, and they just never recovered from it. And they were really close with the mother, so it just completely threw everything off. Now, of course, Astrid was close with the mom too, but it was a different type of closeness that caused her to want to just completely search for her mother instead of dwell on her disappearance and not really do anything about it. So her complete focus was on doing everything that she could to find her mother. But after a while, her and her dad got into a little bit of an altercation, and it ultimately led to Astrid deciding that she was going to stop looking for her mother and focus on figuring out what she wanted to do with her life, which is how she ended up at Atlanta University. When she turned a certain age, she decided that she wanted to go to college and focus on trying to figure out what her power actually was, and then hopefully she would be able to use it to benefit society, as well as just learn more about magic in general. And even if she didn't figure out what her powers actually were, then maybe she would be able to also figure out some other way to use magic so that she could still work on magic as a job. Now, this character's original idea came from an old friend of mine who inspired me to create a character called Universe Chan. I don't remember exactly where the character's name came from, but I do know that the character's whole thing was centered around space. So that was her name at first, but then I decided to make her middle name Universe, just to do a little callback to that, and then change her first name to something that actually made sense. And I still wanted her theme to kind of be spacey, but I didn't want her whole personality to be centered around space. I thought that was kind of lame, and plus I have plenty of other characters that are centered around space, so I wanted to lean away from that a little bit. Now, since I was struggling with figuring out her personality and stuff, it was kind of hard for me to figure out like what she would like to wear or what she would carry around in her bag or whatever. But what I settled on was that she has a lot of kidcore going on with her dress. She really likes bright colors, and she really likes things that are childish. As she got older, she has honed into more things that she used to like in her childhood, so that she could slowly start to figure out who she is and what she likes now that she is more of an independent adult and she has the freedom to be able to figure that out for herself. So she's honed into a lot of kidcore centered stuff and is trying to focus on that when it comes to her style. Now, I'm going to touch on this little piece that is down here, the little cloud that is around her head. So every character is going to have this little piece that basically is going to visualize what their powers look like. Now, since we don't know what Astrid's power is, we're basically going to go with this thing where Astrid has these weird premonitions, these weird visions, these things, these dreams that basically showcase very weird imagery and very lucid type of images that basically make her completely confused. She can't focus on anything, and she completely doesn't know or is in control of her body at all. And this is all that she sees, just these weird random images, basically like she was on an acid trip or something. And this phenomenon happening to her all the time has to do with her powers, and it's basically a big warning that something is about to happen. And this has happened a couple of times. It's happened to her when she was a kid or right before her mother disappeared, but at the time she didn't connect the two. And it's happening to her again at the climax of the story, where we first start back at the story, where she starts discovering things she shouldn't be discovering, and her powers are basically warning her that she's going into some type of danger. So this is the end result of Astrid Universe Myers, the main character for this story. And the main thing about her is that she really likes kidcore when it comes to her style, and she's very adamant about learning more about magic, and hopefully in the process learning more about her actual power. And now that her powers are trying to resurface, whatever her powers may be, she is trying to use that in order to go back into finding her mother, now that she's discovered some things in her town while she is trying to be a student. And then, of course, overall, hopefully at the end, figure out more about her own personality. The next character design that we have here is Astrid's older sister, Star, who I completely forgot I named that, by the way, but basically she always has been the type of person with a lot of energy and with a lot of passion and dreams, and the type of person who always was slightly rebellious, running around and causing trouble as a kid, but she was never somebody who was that reserved until her mother disappeared. Pretty much after that, Star and her father were not on very good terms and were getting into a lot of fights a lot of the time, which caused her to become somebody that was just very quiet and didn't really like talking or getting into any sort of trouble. But she was just trying to get through life in the house without her mother around. She started college a couple of years before Astrid did and became a college dropout. She was under a lot of pressure and was way too focused on how much a lot of things reminded her of her mother. So she was just completely uninterested in college and ended up deciding that it wasn't for her. So then she just completely ended up leaving college, and coincidentally enough, it ended up being right at the same time when Astrid began going to college, and Astrid was able to get an apartment on her own, and Star ended up going to crash at Astrid's house so that she wouldn't have to go back to live with her dad. So that's the situation between them. Star and Astrid never had any problems or anything like that. They pretty much got along well, but Star is hard to talk to and hard to get along with a lot of the time because of how she is not able to regulate her emotions very well. So they were not able to bond as well as they used to when they were kids once their mom disappeared. But their bond slowly began to be able to be rebuilt once Star moved in with Astrid, and they have been able to become proper sisters again. And Star's power is basically that she's able to manipulate her voice in a certain type of way. She's able to amplify the volume of her voice as well as change the pitch of her voice over the normal way that a human is able to do that. And she uses that for music. She's in a small band, and she is the lead singer and guitarist, and she uses the power that she has to her advantage in order to be one of the most popular singers in town. And she is very, very passionate about music. But the thing about her is that I didn't know what else was really about her personality. Like, I knew she was kind of rebellious and her style was going to be kind of grungy, and I knew that, you know, the disappearance of her mom was going to affect her a lot and affect her personality, but I didn't know what else she would have liked, because I know people have more depth than just liking one thing or having that one thing be their entire personality, at least most people. So I tried to figure out what other things I could add in, and what I ultimately decided was to add a little bit of early 2000s gear to, you know, her bag. Like, she carries around a Tamagotchi and she has a little iPod, and I also kind of found it really funny that she would also be into romance novels. I had this specific idea in my head because I was sitting here drawing this in front of my job before I was supposed to clock in, and I basically imagined that she secretly likes romance novels and always carries around at least one, like, really, really cheesy, like, romance manga or, like, romance book. Like, these aren't regular, like, actually kind of good romance novels. These are super, super stupid, just not good at all, like, romance books. And I literally was writing, "This is a romance novel," on the front of this. It was really fun to create this whole piece. I really did enjoy working on this. And this is the finished version of Star Universe Myers, and what I wanted to quickly add was that the little front pieces of her hair that are hanging down past her face, that is a direct callback to one of the older designs that I was going to do back in the day of her, but I ended up completely changing for whatever reason. I cannot remember why I decided not to continue to stick with this, because it was a nice design, but there was something off about it. It didn't feel like her enough, so I think I wanted to change it. But I was thinking about that while I was designing this, and I really wanted to add that back into her design in some facet, and if I can find the image, I'll throw it up on the screen as well. But it's basically a direct callback to that as much as I possibly could. The next character I have here is Pearl Marion, and you could tell that this was my favorite one because it took me the longest amount of time. I spent so much time on this character trying to recreate the essence of her, but also make her a little bit better. So basically the thing with her is that her power consists of creating these cutesy little images from her palms and basically being able to use them to confuse people. She's not an aggressive person. She is not a person that fights at all or anything like that. So she only really uses it if she has to really protect herself, or if she just wants to kind of show off a cool little trick, but she doesn't really use her power that much. However, she embraces the energy that her power gives off a lot by basically being super cutesy and super pink and just super, super, super adorable. And that was the whole thing with this character, and the whole essence that I wanted to continue to give off with her was that she is very focused on being very cute and very personalized. The other thing about her character is that she's rich. Her family is super wealthy, and she has two other big sisters, and they all have a similar thing going on. I mean, they're not all pink, but they all are very, very concerned with being super personalized and showing off their personalities because they can. They have the money, or their family has the money, and they use it in order to basically buy exactly the type of clothes that they want and the exact type of items that they want to carry around with them, so that they can showcase the type of personality that, you know, they want people to perceive them as. Now, originally for this character, she was the one who was rocking the kidcore style of things. Even though her stuff still was pretty pink, the main thing was that she was the one rocking a lot of pink, kind of tomboy-ish at the same time type of style. But I kind of wanted to completely scrap that for this, because I don't really feel that off of this character anymore. The style that I'm leaning more towards now is sort of the croquette style, I think is how you pronounce it, where it's very frilly and very, you know, pink, and a lot of bows and a lot of like cutesy imagery that is going on in her style. The other thing I want to mention that basically applies to a lot of these characters, outside of Astrid and Star, the powers of these girls and the rest of the characters were pretty much non-existent. Like, you couldn't tell what their powers were, and their powers didn't make any sense to the character or to anything that was going on or anything like that. I hadn't even really narrowed down what the powers actually did for most of these characters, and the only thing that I was focused on was Astrid and Star. So this is the end result for Pearl. I adore how this came out. This is definitely my favorite one that I have done out of all the other girls. So the next character that we have is Adina Brahmer, and this character was really hard for me to redraw, which is why this is another speed paint that just took forever, because I didn't know what to do to improve upon her. I know that what I wanted to do was mix kind of like an Applejack sort of thing, sort of personality, sort of style, with cottagecore. And I tend to do that when I'm designing characters, is I mix aesthetics and I mix personalities a lot. I think it makes the character a little bit more interesting. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with that. But the other thing about this character is that she was very, very, very boring. She was one of those designs that had a whole lot of nothing in it. And I also didn't do a very great job with showing off her powers, or what her powers are supposed to be. You couldn't really tell unless I told you, or unless I wrote it about it in a caption or something like that. So since that was how I did this character back in the day, I didn't have much to go off of. And I really struggled with trying to figure out what outfit to put on her. I was doing a lot of searching around and nothing really stuck. I was leaning more towards cottagecore type of things at first, but none of that stuff really seemed to fit her. And I ended up settling on this kind of long, chunky overall look for her. And basically her powers are, she is able to grow flowers out of her hair. And the flowers' health and, you know, the prettiness of the flowers depends on her emotional state at the time. And this is another character that uses her power to do things that are related to that. Like, she does a lot of gardening. She has a whole garden in her backyard, and she studies a lot of botany and a lot of things that have to do with nature and farming. So she's very into that. She's very into animals and taking care of pets as well. So that's the type of character that she is. So because of that, I didn't want to put her in an outfit that looked too cutesy. I didn't really want her wearing some type of cute skirt or anything that was too girly, because that's not really the type of character that she is. She really likes getting her hands dirty. She's really okay with getting in the dirt and with doing things that are messy. She has no problem with that. And she is way more into practicality when it comes to her clothing choices. So I wasn't trying to have her wear anything that was long and cumbersome and would, you know, get dirty, but this was the only thing that I could really think of that matched her. I don't really want to change it. And I thought that adding the little tidbit at the bottom of her pants would always kind of really be dirty, because she's always has her knees in the dirt, would be a nice touch to add for design purposes. So I ended up sticking with this. I also couldn't figure out what to do with her hair. I kind of wanted to change it, but I had no clue how to make it better. If you notice at the beginning of the speed paint, I was trying to have this really weird wavy thing going on with her texture, but it looked so, you know, uncanny and ugly. So I didn't want to keep that. So What I ended up doing was just sort of having more of her hair poke out over her headband and making her hair a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, and showing a different type of texture within her hair, because in the original pictures of her hair is a lot shorter and her forehead is showing a little bit more, but I didn't want to keep that. That's why I wanted to change her hair, and I wanted to add a little bit more differentiating features with her hair. So that's what I ended up changing it to. I also wanted to make sure that I added some gardening related things to her bag. And what I was thinking was that she keeps gloves and a water bottle in her bag at all times, not just for regular flowers, but for her own actual upkeep for her hair. Because not only is black people's hair already going to be done a little bit differently than other people's hair, but she also has to keep up with the flowers that pop up out of her head, just because it'll be better for the general upkeep of her person. This is the end result of Adina. I do end up loving how she turned out, even though that her design was a little bit difficult. Alright y'all, this is the final character for today. Like I said, I have 4 more characters from this universe that I will draw eventually, but for today this is the last character, and her name is Bella Leyland. Now, first thing I want to say is that I was really tired for 90% of this speed paint. I was coming home from work half the time when I was doing this, so the line art looks a little bit crappy, and I ended up just sort of dropping off of it at the end. I didn't really go all the way with this one, and I do apologize for that, but I've just been really tired lately. So I wanted to make sure that I went ahead and got this over with, because at this point May is almost about to end and I have other videos planned. So basically this character, her thing is that her hair is a cloud. She is able to do something with her hair cloud. Genuinely, I didn't know what to do with her power. Like, that's why I don't have anything for this character. I really like how I ended up designing her, but this is another character that didn't have a lot in her original design for me to go off of, and there was pretty much nothing there for her powers either. But the main thing that I've come up with during the speed paint when I was making this is that her hair acts like a cloud, and it's sort of like a mixture of regular hair and actual cloud physics. So her cloud hair, it changes color based off of her emotions, and you'll be able to see that once I finally color this. But it's basically getting a little bit more stormy whenever she's crying or whenever she's upset. It gets a little bit more tornado-y whenever she's in full rage mode or whatever. Now she does have to actually kind of comb her hair and wash it and take care of it a little bit, but she doesn't have to put as much effort into the actual styling of it, because it is a cloud and it's a little bit more unruly in that aspect as well. Now, the thing that I was thinking for this character's actual aesthetic was that she was more light academia core, and her personality is very quiet, very resting bitch face. I don't really want to talk to people. I'm very, 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 very shy. I knew that was what her character used to be like when I drew her originally, but it was the more stereotypical, really, oh, I'm so shy, I'm so cute and shy, like that type of thing, if you could see in the reference picture that I'm going to throw up on the screen. So I wanted to have less of that and more, just, oh, I'm really blank, and I want to, be perceived as somebody that I don't want people talking to me, because she has difficulty talking to people, but when she does find somebody that she likes and that she's able to open up to, that she gets really comfortable and she's able to be a little bit more emotional. And that's what I was going to say. She presents herself as very non-emotional, but she actually is a super emotional person, and she has a lot of empathy, and she is able to have a lot of emotional intelligence. She just presents herself as somebody who doesn't really care about much. But yeah, as I was saying, she has a light academia type of style going on, and I also couldn't figure out what to do with her outfit. What I ended up doing was kind of a callback to her original very lame outfit that I ended up picking for her, but I made it a little bit more interesting looking and a little bit better for her new style that I ended up coming up with. And the other thing that I was thinking about when designing this was that basically she's a person who's really concerned with organization, so she doesn't carry around too many things in her bag, but she has a lot of stuff that is still in the box, and a lot of folders for papers and stuff like that to keep things as organized as possible. A lot of her accessories are very vintage and, you know, very kind of old school. And she also really likes drawing. She likes doodling, and doing small little footnote pictures on a lot of her notes and a lot of her homework and stuff like that. So she's pretty much that type of person, and that's another way that she tends to express herself. Like I said, she has a lot of emotional intelligence, and she's very in tune with her own emotions, and this is the way that she really kind of likes to express her emotions, is through her notes, and through her drawings. You can really tell when she's going through a troubled time, because her notes and her drawings will look that way. Her line art will not be right. Her handwriting will be more like chicken scratch, and it'll be very hard to be able to tell what's actually being written down and stuff like that. It's very obvious to see how she's feeling through her writing and through her art. This is the end result for Bella. Again, I did get really lazy with this one, but I do like how the actual design turned out. Alright guys, that's it. We have come to the end of another video. This one was really fun for me to do. I literally love revisiting my old works. I used to throw away and delete a lot of my old works as well, and I'm so glad that I stopped doing that, because it is an amazing way for me to reflect on how much I have grown, and sometimes I really need that. Every time I think that I'm not improving, I always go back and look at some of my old works. Even some of my old works from last year are drastically different from the ones that I create this year. So I just love revisiting some of my old stuff. This was indeed really fun to do. I will be coming back to do the rest of the characters from this universe, and I will be doing more characters that have, you know, been lost to time. So stay tuned for that type of stuff. But yeah, I have other videos planned. My birthday is coming up at the end of the month, and I wanted to get something out for Mermaid. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be kind of transitioning into some more silent videos. All my videos won't be silent from this point forward, but I will be throwing some silent videos in there that just have text and music on the screen for context, so that, you know, it'll just be a draw with me, and it'll just be quiet, and you guys could just look at the speed paint and draw again with me if you want to. But doing this will be easier for me, because it'll make it better for me to be able to pump out videos faster, because it takes multiple weeks a lot of the time for me to be able to finish these videos and get them out, because of the editing and the actual drawing of the stuff. And then of course now I spent time making different backgrounds and sprites, so you know, it takes me a long time. So being able to throw some silent videos in there will make it easier for me to get videos out quicker. But that's all that I got. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know what you guys think of these designs, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.